Project Knoxville is a third-person multiplayer action survival game in which players must work together and against each other in order to survive. It is set in a game show, much like Hunger Games and The Running Man, but here all contestants can survive if they don't let greed or personal gain get the best of them. We want to take this game further than any other when it comes to dynamic relationships, fragile alliances, and spectator interaction.
Welcome to On the Red Carpet with Tick Podcast. Today we'll be talking with Mikkel Thorsted, Creative Director at Press Play Games, and we'll be talking about the new Microsoft exclusive, Knoxville. Welcome, Mikkel.
Thank you so much.
You know, I'm really excited to play a title like this. This is one of the games that I've voted for out of the three that you guys presented, though I did like Dwarka a lot, especially after seeing the second build. Graphically, I was really impressed. But this game just intrigued me with the details and things that you guys were talking about how close it is to being a Hunger Games type title. So with that being said, you know, you guys took a different approach when it came to how you wanted to develop the game. Tell us how you came up with the idea for Knoxville, and why did you guys take this approach in getting the gamers involved in the development of the game?
So I really see your question as two questions.
Yeah.
First off, doing an open process is something that we at Press Play actually always wanted to do, really. I mean, making games is so much about also interacting with the audience, the guys who are going to play your game, and for us, it's like, it's of course super interesting, it's super fun to create a game, but I think being in the black box for 1 or 2 or 3 years, so people are laughing because they're playing Knoxville actually in the background.
Okay.
No, but being in a black box for X amount of time is just really hurtful, and not knowing what's gonna happen once you release or announce the game.
Right.
How's it actually gonna be received?
Right.
It's just a constant dilemma, and in this approach, we could, from the get-go, we could actually know if people are interested in it. We can get like a real idea of what actually ticks the audience, but also, like, why not use all the ideas that are out there and try and see how they fit into our game.
Right.
This is not about letting the community do our hard decisions or design, but
Right.
It's definitely about opening up so we actually can take the good response and bring it into the game and make the game better in that way. And also, of course, why not be making a game where we have people cheering on us while we do it?
Right.
So how we came up with the game is another was the second part of the question, which is a really long story. I think it's a story that as many other game concepts started with the fascination of these like real life survival stories where people go to the extremes in order to survive, really.
Right.
And I think so there was a lot of inspiration on things like the Live movie, you know, do you remember the movie with the rugby players crashing in the Andes in the 70s?
Right.
Like, what happens in a situation like that? Like close to realistic settings, not the zombie ones, but the more like wilderness survival kind. That's where we started. But then wanting to sculpt something like a multiplayer game with immersive gameplay and getting those things in there is like, okay, here we could do something really interesting where we explore like the limits for human nature, what do people actually do when they are always considering their own survival. So 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 that's where we started, and then talking about it and working with it, we really found out that framing it in a TV show setting could give us a lot of opportunities and fun things we could do with the game that would be really hard if we placed it in a sort of like plane crash wilderness survival situation. So if we framed it in a TV show, we could put up simple, intuitive rules. We could allow spectators to watch what was going on. We could build up personalities. We could have arenas that was widely different and dynamic. So I think if you look at Hunger Games and yes, there's a lot of I personally love Hunger Games, by the way. But but there's a lot of things that I think Hunger Games is doing really interesting. But a really big difference in what we're doing is we're saying this is not a death match, and it should never be a death match. It's not a winning strategy to kill everybody else, or
right.
Then it's one of many to do that, at least. So really, it's important to say it's more like the experiment where everybody can survive if they work together in the right way.
Right.
But in these situations, when you're pushed to the limits all the time, it's not necessarily what will happen. People will start getting greedy. People will start being desperate and do stuff that you did not expect them to do.
Right.
So I think in a nutshell, we're doing something that is extremely ambitious, but also, and I mean, really hard to do in the sense that we want this action focused game with rather short rounds, but we still want like the depth of the dilemmas of survival in there, and these like relationships that you build up and break and are constantly curious about how will evolve or yeah,
right.
what will happen. So I don't know, that was a lot of things in once. Did that make sense?
No, it made a lot of sense. I completely understand where you're coming from. I think a game like that is very interesting because you in most survival games, you know, when you get hungry, people are dying from the environment and things like that. You do what you have to do to survive. You try to preserve your own life, and if that means, just like the people who crashed in the mountain and were trapped, and they had to resort to cannibalism and eating, their own friends. It's you do what you have to do to survive. But I like the aspect in the game where it's like you don't have to kill everybody off. You have to really work together, unless you're forced to do something that you really don't want to do to survive, and that's truly what survival is. So it's a very interesting concept, without question. I really like it. I can't wait to to put my input in.
And I think it's a lot of other games has tried working with this, what can I say, same high concept in some ways at least. And we're really eager to make things differently. So we're really focusing on how we can avoid this being like a griefer game,
right.
or how we'll just end up with people killing each other anyways, even though we didn't really intend like that to be the main thing people are doing.
Right.
So we're really doing a lot of experiments on how can we actually make sure that the actions you do in the game can have consequences. So talking about things like it should be, so if you're in a group, some guy starts acting aggressively, the rest of the group will turn to self-policing and stop that guy in some way. That could be like killing him, but it could also just pushing him out of the group and let him
survive
be on his own.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't know you could do that. Wow.
So this is really interesting mechanisms that we're trying to work with that I think nobody has really succeeded in doing before.
Right. Now, how does the environment play a role in all of this? I mean, obviously, when you're doing a survival game, you know, if you're trapped in the woods, you have to eat bugs, you have to make tools, you're climbing mountains, you're just trying to survive different weather conditions. Does that play a role in any aspect of the game?
No. That's also one of the play. Or maybe someone that actually does. But we're trying to say no crafting, no hunger, none of these things that you see in many survival games. Trying to make the focus more on shorter game rounds, action, and then saying so the environment's role here and the TV show's role, at least to a large extent, is making sure that we have the right amount of hostileness in the environment to make the players do interesting things and constantly feel that they are pressured.
Right. Are there any other I guess you could say dangers in the environment besides the players? Are there animals? Are
yes.
there? Oh, so
yes.
there are. Okay.
So we're definitely thinking. Well, the environment themselves, we want this sort of mix of a futuristic mechanical environment and wilderness, and we want that environment to have built-in dangers. So there could be like traps and things that crash you in many ways that are there in the environment, and oftentimes you could use that. For instance, one player could push another player into a dangerous place in the environment, and in that way kill him off if that's what he wanted to do, of course. But also placing animals, I think thinking of the arenas as futuristic Colosseum arenas of a extremely large scale is yeah, sort of like how I like to think about it.
Yeah. Now, you know, I like the idea of obviously having other dangers besides your own characters and things like that. I think a lot of fans might try to get you guys to add some type of tools or some type of environmental effects. But do the characters themselves come with different skill sets that they may have and only they may have, which kind of forces you to keep that individual person? For example, if somebody knows how to like climb a mountain, you know, and there's a mountain coming up, you don't want to get rid of that person. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, and I mean you're hitting on a point that we are at the moment really discussing a lot, and I'm not certain what we are gonna do, but we are definitely thinking that the characters that you play, you will be able to upgrade them. I think we'll do something in skill trees.
Oh, okay.
But it's totally undecided.
Okay.
Yet, but it's like your example is one of the examples that we actually have discussed many times, and I think there's some really nice pros to that you have characters that actually can contribute to different things, and in that way becomes necessary for you to work with, or at least an advantage for you to work together with.
Yeah.
So that would be really interesting. But I mean, right now we are doing a lot of exploration in how does traversal feel like in the game? How is it actually made? How is melee combat in the game? Right now the focus is like we're only thinking of melee weapons at the moment.
Okay.
And one of the experiments that we are about to do is really opening up and saying we want everything to be physics based. So we want two characters to be able to hold another character back if needed, or we want the characters to be able to push each other. We want to be able to like start a big rock rolling and crushing players if that's what you want to do, or we want that kind of want that kind of stuff in there where everything is really physical and physics based. But it's also one of the, I mean, that is a pretty big challenge in a multiplayer environment, and also just in general making physics-based gameplay that does not become silly. We wanted to have depth and have the right like tone and feel to be according with the high concept, of course.
Right. Now this sounds like one of the biggest projects you guys have been working on so far, or will be working on so far.
We are considering it our biggest, yes. So we are the biggest team we ever been at Press Play. Right now we're around 30 guys.
Nice.
We need we are actually looking for more, and we're expecting this production to go on for 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
Which would make it definitely our largest game.
Wow.
Because, I mean, normally we've been working on several titles at a time. We've been a smaller team. We've been more like 20.
Graphically, you know, I saw the opening sequence where you guys had the characters climbing up, supporting each other as they're trying to, you know, make it up the cliff and get to the next side, and everybody's all grouped up with backpacks. And, you know, I understand that that's just a concept, you know, or just a preview image, but graphically, what type of tone are you guys taking on? Do you guys plan to make 3D game and like an open environment, and the graphics will be more realistic instead of cartoony, or will they be more cartoony?
I mean, I think it's really important all the time to remember that we are considering ourselves still working with the concept.
Right. Okay.
So we are in the very early and first stage of a game production. But I think it's safe to say that we are definitely going for a 3D, more open environment.
Okay.
We are going not totally cartoony, not realistic. We're going somewhere in between there. I think we're doing something like stylized realism, we call it.
Okay.
Which is proportions and so on are close to realism. Textures and shapes of things in the world are also close to realism, but definitely with a highly stylized touch to it. So I think looking at games like Firewatch and Portal 2, sort of like the direction we're leaning towards.
Nice. Those are some really good games to call out. You know, now multiplayer obviously plays a major role in the game.
Yes, it is. It's essential to the game. Yes.
Right, and I love the TV aspect of everything. What is your thoughts on how do you approach this TV aspect to make it entertaining for the spectators? Meaning that anybody can join into a game and actually watch what's happening, like actual other gamers, or it's just like a built-in crowd that you guys have into the game?
Definitely thinking of it as it's actual other gamers who can watch the game. Also, since it's a survival game and you will die in rounds, we are like the spectating mode at the moment is, so if you die, you enter as a spectator. You're actually camera flying around in the level.
Okay.
But you can also be a spectator that haven't taken part of the actual game round and just be a spectator. And I think we are trying to facilitating spectating from as many platforms as possible and in as many ways as possible.
Wow.
But I think we need to have things for the spectators actually to do in there. Since this is not an esport as such, it's more like, so what if we earn currency while playing this TV show? Would we then have some currency that we can actually bet on other players, or we can use to make the spectator mode more interesting? So it could be making events happen, could be it could also be like investigating other players that you know you're gonna meet soon in your next round, finding out how they're playing. I think we're really trying to be open here on the spectator mode and saying, if this is as interesting playing as we think it is,
right,
then it's also gonna be interesting watching it, and that's like where we start thinking. So what can we do to build on top of this for the spectators? And I think it's gonna be something like, so if we say, I think real outside spectators are probably only going to be like a real thing on what can I say, high level matches.
Okay.
I wouldn't expect that every game session for for lower level characters would be spectated by a lot of people. I think that's sort of unrealistic.
Right. I think that's cool. Having the spectators look at the best gamers playing the game with their maxed out or high level characters because they have the most skill sets, so they can do more. And I think honestly, if somehow you guys were to implement that, the higher the characters are, the more dangerous things can become. Whereas low level, you really don't have a lot of things to, you don't have a lot to your arsenal, so you're just getting into the game, you're just understanding, things may not be as difficult. But if you have these characters at a high level and you have all these skills and things like that to survive, what the problem is that the dangers are more present, the urge to kill somebody is more present. I think that would make it super intense, and it would be great if something like that was to happen.
And I think, I mean, we're also discussing things like, so are we doing something to the higher level character you are, the bigger the arenas are, the more exploration we put into the game. So there's more like, so in that way, it's sort of everything in the game grows together with
the character.
With the character, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I think just maybe something that I forgot to say here is I think looking at it and looking at press play and so on, I think it's really important to remember that we are in many ways all about doing games that are really easy to pick up and get into, but still have a certain depth to it.
Right.
And it's also important here to know that we're not trying to do something that's hyper complex or anything like that. We want all these things to happen in a, can I say, easy, accessible way, right, without, of course, being dumbed down. So a really hard task to do again, but that's what we're aiming at.
I think it's smart to do it that way. I think the less thinking of what a character should be doing with the skills that they are the skills that they have while playing the game, and more focus on the thinking aspect of survival. Making the characters think about, how do I survive in this group? Who is the weakest link? Who is the person, that's dragging us behind and killing us, or who's the person that we should get rid of because this person is a threat to the entire survival of the team. Focusing on those things and just being able to have easy controls, easy access to things, I think makes it even more cerebral than just playing the game and trying to survive. So I really like that aspect as well.
Great, cool. And I think we're also doing stuff like H1C1 shall also
right.
I think it's quite fun, at least the battle royale mode. I think if you look at that, we have a death match, we have 200 players at the server. What we're trying to do here is something where we say we can't be more than 8 players because you need to be able to know who those other guys are. You need to be able to have an overview of who are we here and what is going on and make those smaller groupings. I think some of the most interesting things that we are seeing is people will group up in maybe 2 to 4 persons in one group, and really interesting stuff happens when they meet other characters or other groupings there, which is super interesting at the moment when we play.
Right.
But I think having that low number of players in there and having this shortish or like half an hour, 20 minutes game rounds is
nice.
It works really well for the game.
No, that's a great number. I actually like that number. I mean, to me, that gives you enough time to play the game, feel fulfilled, but it's not short enough where it's like you felt like you couldn't do enough. I like that number. That's a great time number. Now, what I want to get into is Microsoft recently showed off cloud physics. Yes. And we saw Crackdown. Looked amazing, especially with multiplayer. This game sounds like an online-only game, obviously.
Yes.
With it being an online-only game, you got to tell me, with a 3 to 4 year development cycle, please tell me you're going to try to at least use cloud physics in the game.
I think I'll do the politician answer there and say I totally don't know yet.
Okay.
And right now we have not experimented with the physics in the game really, like the physics-based gameplay. So we really don't know what the need is for cloud-based physics at the moment. But I mean, if we come to a point where we can see we can't do what we want to do without it, then we'll definitely consider it.
Okay.
But it would be premature to
say yes or no. Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be. Of course, you can do awesome things with it, but I think right now the focus is not as much on saying we want the most crazy destruction like physics game we have, which Crackdown.
Oh man, I think if you guys were to do something like that, and of course this is all just, you know, hyperbole, I guess you can say. But if you guys were to do this, oh man, I think it would be crazy. I could imagine pushing a boulder downhill and just watching trees tumble over. You know, and the boulders may go a direction you didn't plan it to go because the way the world is designed. I know it's a little bit ambitious for me to talk this way, but I think it would be great if something like that was to happen.
I would love that to happen too. And I think our first step at that would say how much can we do without doing it cloud based? Because right. I mean, I think if we're smart about it, I think we can do a lot.
Right.
I mean, we don't have, at least not yet, 50-story buildings that we need to break down or anything like that. So
right.
So I think we might be able to do that with what we have.
Oh man.
But that would be awesome. I totally agree.
Yeah, without question. It's a very ambitious title. I like the sound of it. I know a lot of guys, you know, played Max Curse of Brotherhood. People love the puzzle aspects of Kalimba. Mm-hmm. Now, some of the things about it, obviously, being you guys worked on platformers and things like that, are there elements of platforming in the game as well as puzzles to solve, maybe to get to a certain point and the group has to figure these things out together, or no, it's just about survival and using the resources that you have?
I would love that to be. I mean, in our prototype right now, we have really crude controls, really. Mm-hmm. But we're definitely looking at making a traversal platforming mechanics in the game that works well.
Okay.
So in that sense, you will feel some platforming, but platforming is not gonna be like the main pillar here.
Right.
Of course, I think working together, figuring out problems and puzzles is just something we all love and would make a lot of sense, I think, in a game where cooperation is needed.
Right.
It's not in our current prototypes, but it's definitely something that we're going to explore.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. I'm excited about the game. I can't wait to see what you guys, you know, finally get us gamers to play, because I definitely did sign up. By the way, you guys named your group, you know, The Inner Circle, which this is the Inner Circle podcast.
Yeah, I know.
You know, but it's okay. It is okay.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, no, I'm really excited to play. I joined up immediately because I remember talking with Asker about it a while ago when I was speaking with him about Kalimba, and he spoke about how you guys were coming up with this idea about getting gamers to join in the development of particular games. And I was looking, I was like, oh my God, you know, I can't wait to see what Press Play is coming out with, because like you said, you guys were working on like several different games at the time. And I was like, what are they going to show? And then you guys dropped this bomb, like, no, we don't have several, we got 3 games. You guys pick, and which one you like the best is what we'll work on. So I'm glad the one I voted for finally got chosen.
I'm glad to.
And I can't wait to play the game. So I want to thank you for coming on the show, and I hope that as you guys get further and further into the game development, or maybe when we get a chance, I can have you back on to discuss what you guys have created so far.
I would love to do that, and I think we're really trying to do everything to share all we have all the time, and I hope that within months a lot of people out there will have played what we have and will be discussing it. So So yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Definitely.
And you think next year will probably be a good time? People will be able to get their hands on it, or is it playable now? Because I heard the guys were in the background playing. Are you guys playing it now?
Yeah, I mean, we're playing the prototypes, and maybe I did not say it clear enough, but we are actually opening up for like people in the inner circle, which is our inner circle, to start playing the game online already in the coming weeks.
Oh wow!
So within, I would guess within months, we would have hopefully a lot of people having played the really rough prototype. But right now we're finding out how does it actually, I mean, does it actually work for people to play something that's this rough at the moment? Because right now it's only showing like intentions and really core features, and there's a lot of feedback and explanation, polish explanations that are not there. Not to mention like the whole upgrading and all that is not there at all either. So but still we wanna share the prototype. We want people to play it, and we wanna have all the feedback we can to find out like what do we need to do to make it better, and we'll keep on doing that until the game is done in some years.
Nice. Well, that sounds great. I know the fans are going to go gaga over this game. You guys do good work.
I hope so.
And I look forward to playing it. Mikkel, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk with us over here at Tech Podcast, and I hope to talk with you in the future about Knoxville again.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep.